So today's conversation is one I've personally been wanting to have for a while because psychedelics culture is really moving into a different phase right now. We've spent years talking about underground use, spirituality, and research, policy, and the psychedelic renaissance is this big abstract movement. But now we're seeing something, new happen in real time. States are legalizing facilitator models, clinics are opening, training programs are expanding, and people are trying to turn all this into an actual functioning system. And that raises a pretty uncomfortable question, and nobody really wants to sit down and talk about. So, welcome back to Divergent States. I'm Elite, back again with Bryan. How's it going?
What's up, man? It's going great. How are you?
Doing, I'm doing great. I'm excited. It's great conversation with Dori. Speaking, we've got Dori Lewis. She's a psychotherapist, clinical supervisor, and co founder of Elemental Psychedelics and owner of the Reflective Healing Center in Colorado. And she's a natural medicines license facilitator in the state of Colorado. So it's a new, licensing thing.
Okay.
Her organization focuses on training psychedelic practitioners with an emphasis on experiential learning, ethics, integration, and relational depth. And honestly, Colorado may be one of the most important real world testing grounds for psychedelic facilitation in the country right now. For the first time, we're seeing what happens after the legalization headlines, not theory, not, abstract, not hype. It's the actual practice. So today we're going to be talking about the gap between licensing and competency, ethical drift, financial pressure in psychedelic care, role of personal psychedelic experiences for facilitators, and whether this can realistically scale without losing the human element. That makes it valuable. So, before we jump in, Bryan, you got any read on where psychedelic culture is heading right now?
I think it's heading to a healthier place for sure. It's opening up, but at the same time, I still see it. I don't know. It's a tough question to answer, but I think our guest today is going to help us out with that.
Oh yeah, I think she's got some great insights for us to get into that. So, all right, everybody, this is going to be our conversation with Dori Lewis. All right, everybody. So this is our conversation with Dori Lewis. Dori, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you. So how did you first enter psychedelic assisted therapy?
Oh, that's a story, but I'll keep it short. A psychonaut, just a personal psychonaut as a teenager, exploring my consciousness out of curiosity and just awe, and had some rocky experiences. I was really into some of the jam music and really got into that scene on the Northeast, and so followed a few bands around and took a fair amount of LSD. And had a lot of experiences. And then I was also simultaneously becoming a psychotherapist. I got my master's at Columbia University in New York. And so when I was in New York, I was going to clubs in Brooklyn and taking psychedelics, but then also by day working in psychiatric hospitals and learning about mental health. So my two worlds kind of collided when I moved out to Colorado. And I guess kind of, as they say, one thing led to another. And I was shocked that people were using ketamine for mental health treatment, but it really worked really well. So yeah, I would say it was a convergence of my personal interests and my professional interests, and I'm really grateful to have found something that I'm so passionate about, and that is obviously the world is getting pretty excited about too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. I mean, I feel like I kind of came up the same way, like doing all this. It was like the jam bands and
Yes.
rainbow gatherings and all that fun stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, I know that. I know how that kind of that little path, that part of it, how it goes. So that's really awesome. So did you see any, like, what gaps did you see that like to help that led you to creating elemental psychedelics?
Well, I mean, in the underground or I guess recreational scene, it was like there was no set and setting except for the music, and I was seeing how people were responding pretty negatively sometimes and having negative experiences, myself included, being really overwhelmed by some of the psychedelic experiences, particularly with LSD and sometimes DMT, and became really passionate about when I came out to Colorado and started to be more of a recipient of intentional ceremonial plant medicine work. I was curious about the power of a container and the ability for an intentional container to hold actually like the vastness that was available, the potential available in psychedelics that I didn't experience in the recreational space. So because of my personal experiences in more intentional settings, I became very passionate about talking about set and setting. And I think that as I started to share more about my experiences, and both positive and negative, of experiencing and being a recipient of space holding, I became very aware that there were large gaps in people talking about specifically ethics around facilitation and how a facilitator's own stuff can unconsciously become very directive in a psychedelic experience. So I would say that was a really big gap that I saw, was a lot of a lot of facilitators not doing their own like existential shadow work and being aware of how that was transferring into the psychedelic experiences they were facilitating.
Yeah, I can see how that could. I mean, that's one of the things that's we're coming to that a little bit later. We're going to talk a little bit about that same subject, about how do you keep the facilitators from, having that push over onto the patient's experience. But
Mm-hmm.
I that's something we push a whole lot as well. We talk a lot about set and setting, and a lot of times having a guide if that's possible. And so I get where that comes from. And so it's tough to translate that, especially recreational users. I mean, we've done it. I've always preached it on Psychonaut, on the subreddit, like forever, but
Yeah.
I guess for most recreational users, that's probably not at the forefront of their mind, because that's set and setting. And so, yeah, it's nice that's continuing from the underground somewhat to, licensed facilitators and into the larger world, especially now. Um, So, what would you say would be like the difference between the just an enthusiasm for psychedelics, like we all have, but more of a readiness to facilitate them?
Well, I think one of the things that I consider when someone's interested in, attending my program, for example, is maybe you had a lot of people reach out. I had a psychedelic experience. It changed my life. I really want to facilitate. And I'm like, cool, sit with medicine a little longer, like build your relationship more. And I think and be facilitated. Have someone else be in that position of holding space for you before you want to hold space for other people, and do it with a lot of different people, and have maybe an ongoing relationship with whichever medicine you want to be facilitating. Having just a few experiences or doing something for about a year, that's great. And I don't know if it really prepares people to be stewarding something in the way that facilitation is, I think is the call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we kind of talk about Bob the shaman, or the cul-de-sac shaman, from time to
Yeah, it's
time.
my favorite
Yeah, and
character.
right? He comes, you know, he did a couple ayahuasca sessions one time, and now he knows what he's
Right.
doing,
Right. Yeah,
right?
I can't stand
Right.
that.
um, let's see. So, what does relational work mean? You know, when it actually comes down to in practice, what you do?
Yeah, like with the medicine, you mean? Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would say learning how to journey with a plant spirit. And when we're talking about psilocybin mushrooms, and I'm talking about psilocybin mushrooms, not synthetic psilocybin, which we can talk about later if you want to. But what I'm talking about is like a plant spirit, and it's a little different than working with synthetics, I find. And I want to name, like, I was trained in a shamanic practices as well as being a clinician who's done, research and things like that. I kind of bridge the two worlds, and I really do believe in my ongoing relationship with mushrooms that I've experienced a sense of a spirit, like a guide that's in the plant and or the fungi. So my understanding of building a relationship with this plant spirit is spending time learning, how do we communicate? It's like learning a new language. How do I support this relationship in for both of us? Meaning, how do I give in reciprocity? What does my life have to start to look like, or how do I have to show up differently in my life to give back to the plant spirit? And that could look like building a relationship with an altar space in your home, or building a relationship with plants on your own land, or doing a plant dieta. I'm like currently drinking a tea of a linden tree plant to build a relationship with a plant from the land of my ancestors in Ashkenazic Europe. So I'm spending time building ongoing relationships with plant spirits in order to continue to have a relationship and be in a reciprocity with the plant spirit world, so that I'm not just coming to mushrooms and saying, here, I want to have an experience, give it to me.
right.
Right. That's like a one-way relationship. Rather, okay, I'm receiving so much from this medicine, from this plant spirit consciousness. In what ways can I be in reciprocity and offer my attention? Attention is such a powerful form of reciprocity, of just giving my attention, of paying attention to something. And so I would say that's one way. And learning to journey with mushrooms can take time. My first experience was just like, whoa, too overwhelming. I was very young. I was like 16, and I was just blasted with an experience that I didn't know what to do with. And I, over many years, have learned to I know how it feels when the come up starts. I know how to ride the wave and not be overtaken by the somatic experience. I know what happens when I start to kind of hit that crescent where it starts to get really intense. I know how to move my body in a way that supports the experience. Learning how to journey with medicine takes time. But then when I've learned to do it, it's like, okay, I know how to handle this part. I know how to handle when it gets really intense. I know how to handle when my body starts to feel this way. I know what to do when I start kind of coming out of it. I know how to support myself. So those are two ways I think about relationality with psilocybin mushrooms.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it is good, at least when you know, like you said, your somatic responses, when you know what your body needs, or you know, when you're on that come up, that helps a lot. And that's again kind of going back to like the Bob the Cole the shaman. You know, if you're not, you can do two experiences, but you're really still not acquainted with that. You know what I mean? That
No.
experience. So yeah, that's a good that's a good point on that. On the
And another piece is also like honoring the integration process. So, like for example, Bob the Shaman, how much could he have integrated?
right,
After a few journeys. I've been doing mushrooms for over, oh my gosh, I don't even know, 20 years at this point, and I've integrating the wisdom of the medicine has taken time. My life now looks quite different, as it should, right? That's the point of integration and doing medicine work, is
right.
that my life should feel and look different. So I think integration is another aspect of relationality.
Oh yeah, that's a huge thing. It's another thing we also like. We did a whole episode on all the set and setting and
Oh,
integration and
sure.
community. It's all those things really help for just a more successful trip. Is how I'd put it.
Hmm.
And kind of like the whole question, the leading up to from all of that is, do you think there are people like who enter the field who are more attracted to like the identity of being a psychedelic, you know, facilitator rather than the actual responsibility of holding that space.
Yes, absolutely. I call it the guru complex.
Yeah.
And we talk about it actually at Elemental Psychedelics on our first day when we introduce ethics and facilitator ethics. We're talking about like and it's okay, I think, to own and to recognize maybe like there's a little piece of many facilitators who probably want to feel a sense of importance. And there's actually nothing inherently wrong with that. To deny that aspect of shadow is, I think, actually quite unhealthy. But rather, how am I in relationship with the part of me that wants to be seen as the spiritual guru and shaman? And how do I not let that part of me become the overarching aspect that is facilitating? But rather, how can I recognize, yeah, that's a part of why I want to do this. I want to be helpful. I want to be spiritually important in my community. Okay. And I also can work with that aspect of myself and try to engage some humility and not let that part be the part that's facilitating, or the main part of myself that is showing up as a facilitator.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's I think you're right there with the shadow work too. And you know, that there's a part of them that wants that, obviously, or they probably wouldn't even go into the field. So
Right.
if they're not honest with themselves with that, at least, then
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with having like a
right.
spiritual attachment to what you do in life. I feel like that's extremely important. It's just kind of, try not to be a dick about it.
Yes, exactly. And I'll be the first to admit, like, I have that part, right? I have that part that wants to be helpful and right. And wants to be that like seen in this positive way in my community as the helper. It was the way that I succeeded in my family system. It's the way that I want to succeed, be loved in my community. So I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with these parts of ourselves. That it's just owning that there's a shadow side to the beauty of it too.
Right.
And how can I just be in relationship with that and not deny it?
Yeah. No, I really like that. I like your answer on that. That's, it's very true. Kind of moving on to a little bit of the licensing and competency, so as you're doing your license, you've done, I guess you've trained a bunch of therapists in, Colorado for this. So what does that license, actually guarantee?
Well, it guarantees you a license.
Yeah, right.
And the ability to be able to provide administration sessions of approved psilocybin medicine that's approved by the state, by the Department of Revenue. And as a licensed facilitator, you can do that at a healing center. So I have a license. I can rent a room or get a position at a healing center and use the approved medicine that is available at that healing center to provide my clients with administration sessions and an integration session, because your administration session must include the cost of the follow-up integration session as well.
Well, that's good to know. What does it not guarantee?
A job,
right?
a position at a healing center, clients.
Yeah.
That's on the individual. And but like places like where I own Reflective Healing also, which is a healing center where we were the first micro healing center in the state of Colorado. And we have a membership program. So thank you. We've been operating for over a year now, and we have a membership program. So let's say you become a licensed facilitator through Elemental and you want a place to work. We can rent you a room. You can become a member. You pay a monthly membership fee. And then when you have a client that wants to do medicine, all you have to do is just pay for the room, and you come in and you have access to the medicine, all of our legal documentation. You don't have to become a healing center. You don't have to go through that $10,000+ process to be able to practice. You can have space at healing centers, and many healing centers are doing what I'm doing, which is having some kind of membership model or a rental model where you can use the kind of perks of the healing center in order to practice with your license. So that's not an issue.
That's really awesome. Like, I didn't realize that's how it works. So that's really cool that you can do that.
Well, I think that's like the standard for even like with basic counseling and other things like that, is usually one person owns the business and then they find other therapists and rent the rooms out, or, some sort of membership like you were just talking about.
Yeah, I have actually, the Reflective Healing has two models. We have members who are facilitators. We also have just therapists who work at Reflective Healing, who are contractors, who make their own schedules, and they have access to our referral base. And so I have kind of two arms of Reflective Healing. And we also just do good talk therapy and ketamine-assisted psychotherapy at Reflective Healing, not just psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy. So we have both.
Nice. Do you do like a mentorship or anything with these people?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I provide consultation. It's a free 90-minute consultation group for all of our members. And then anybody who works at Reflective Healing Center also has the opportunity to meet with me anytime for free to do consultation or supervision. And I'm a licensed supervisor as well in the state of Colorado for LPCs, which is a licensed professional counselor.
That's awesome. Do you ever do you ever see like what would you say like what's the big common mistake that newer facilitators make?
I think there's an anxiety there's two anxieties. There's the concern about how am I going to make back all the money that I just spent on training in a short period of time? And as anyone who's been doing underground work will tell you, the underground mushroom world is like, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Meaning that like over time you build a reputation and people get to know you and you get trusted by people and you develop it over time. And I believe that people will ultimately quote unquote make back their money that they paid for the license and all the things that they invested, but it might take more than a year. It's really an investment in a career. And that can take time. As somebody who has a master's degree, for example, it's not like I made back that money when I first started working in community mental health. I was in, not a great place financially for many years when I first graduated with my master's. So it's kind of like that. I also think there is somewhat of an anxiety of working with people who have more complex mental health needs and or people who are out of state. So I do a lot of coaching around getting people to understand that if people really want to do this medicine, just because they have complex mental health issues doesn't mean it's a total rule out. It's more how do we like support them in having an on-ramp to doing this over time. It might not be immediate, but there are many ways to support people in finding their way to a psychedelic experience with mushrooms that just take more time. So I think there's like a patience and a confidence in one's ability that I think takes time to build also.
Right. Do you ever think that people underestimate like the psychological weight of the work when they come in? I know you're talking about like people with complex, they worry about too many complex, diagnoses or whatever. But do you think people ever, underestimate like how weightful it can be?
I think people underestimate it in the fact that they think they can see like multiple sessions in a week. And that's just not, I mean, I did underground work for a long time. It's really difficult to do more than one medicine session in a week.
Right. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, taking 2 or 3 medicine sessions in a week could be taxing pretty quick unless you really have your head on straight, I guess you could say.
I don't even know. Or you don't have your head on at all and you're totally detached from your body and you're not actually there.
Third party if you're trying.
You're just disassociating, right, at that point.
That's right.
So kind of going back, we talked about this earlier. How do you keep facilitators or how do facilitators avoid projecting meaning onto their clients?
Well, you're always, there's always going to be transference and countertransference. So you're not going to get away from it. But I think that one of the ways facilitators can be really onto themselves about what they are projecting is to do their own work. Is like, don't stop going to therapy or getting supervision and consultation or doing your own work with plant medicines or psychedelics or, other entheogens, like to keep up with exploring your inner terrain with people that hold you accountable in a way that engages a lot of humility and recognizing that it's okay to make missteps in this work. Like you're going to say the wrong thing. And I'm putting my hands in air quotes for those who can't see. Right. There are going to be times where you do project some of your stuff into the space. What's most important is how do you repair? How can you come to a client afterwards and say, I noticed when you said X and I behaved in this way or showed up in this way, it really didn't land. And maybe it made you feel, I don't want to make assumptions, but I want to know what that was like for you. Tell me what that was like. How can we do some repair here? And that's like really powerful. So I think it's about being able to recognize that your stuff will be in the room, and not to do the whole putting it all on the client. Like, well, what does that bring up for you in that? And if a client says, well, you said this thing and it really made me anxious, or it really made me feel uncomfortable with you. And then, a really, I think, unfair thing would be to say, well, what's that? What does that say about you, basically? How can I just like put that back onto the client? That's not fair. And that's not kind.
Right.
So I think recognizing like you're going to say things and do things that are not supportive because of your own impulses. And one of the greatest things I think facilitators can learn is somatic awareness. Like, how do I feel when certain parts of me show up? And how does it feel in my body when I say or do something that's out of alignment? Can I notice the slight subtle distinction between something that's supportive in the space energetically and something that's actually just shifted us and derailed us a little bit? And that's like energetic attunement to the client, attunement to oneself. And I think somatic work is one of the great ways to begin that process.
Yeah, for people out there who don't know what somatic work is, it's like
Thank you.
tells you that your body is telling you what's wrong with it. And so it's just really paying attention to your body is how the best way I would kind of explain it. But that's, that's very important, especially with psychedelics and all those trips, is just, it's your body giving you messages and sending you messages. And so,
yeah. And I hope I'm not being too cryptic, but some of this is so subtle and it's so energetic and so attuned. It's hard to talk about it in like more concrete terms. So if there's something that I'm saying that's not concrete enough, I can try to make it more accessible to some of your listeners.
Well, then
we've all got
you'll be taking away my job, right? To what did you say, Bryan?
We've all got our Rosetta Stone with us.
So then you'd be taking away with my job, and then I won't have anything to do if I can't clarify for the audience. Do you ever worry that like the psychedelic therapy is developing the same institutional blind spots that maybe traditional therapy systems have? I mean, because people are people. There seems to be there's a perception, I guess, out there that you get the legalization and these clinics and systems, and suddenly it's just safe. So does that concern you? Yes.
Well, it doesn't concern me, but I think that's just the reality, like human error, right? Like we're fallible. Like
Right.
we're gonna mess this up. It's okay. Everything, medicine, like, there are spiritual gurus that have caused so much harm in our world, and people that people have really seen as being so good and kind and altruistic, who then it comes out that they've caused harm to others. It's just part of, I think, being human, that we're going to mess things up. And I think what I would really be excited about is, can we create a paradigm in the mental health psychedelic world that makes more space for humility, for repair, for the ability to say, we did mess up. This actually wasn't right or wasn't well held. How do we engage in a process of repair? That would be, I think, the most exciting thing to see come through this space. Not so much that we would do it like perfectly or without causing harm.
Yeah, I feel like that's where my base position as I come at this is, what about the people? Like a lot of this becomes really abstract, and we talk about all these ideas and thoughts and what we're going to do, but I think that's what keeps me grounded the most is, okay, so what about the people? Well, the people that are actually experiencing all this. So, yeah, it's it's all we can do is just keep on keeping on, I guess. Keep trying and hopefully get better.
Do the best we can.
Yeah. Just do better, So do you ever see any, like, I guess, do psychedelics sometimes create a sense of certainty in both the practitioner and the participant at the same time? Do you see that?
Yes, okay. Definitely. I definitely see that on both ends.
Right. Do you ever see like Like, what's the difference between like a quiet ethical failure versus like obvious misconduct?
Well, a quiet ethical failure could be not attuning to a client, maybe them like turning their body away from you as a facilitator and going away from you, and you reaching and offering more like support in that moment. You're really not attuning to what their body is showing you. Or if a client is processing something out loud and you start to go in a different direction, that's a subtle, like you're guiding it in a way that it's meant to be client led. And if you have your own agenda, that's a subtle misstep. But an egregious misstep, I actually just did a continuing education course, and we did a kind of a non-egregious and egregious. We talked about these things. I mean, egregious would be when, touching someone when they say, don't touch me.
Right.
It would be giving somebody more medicine than they've consented to. It would be, allowing them to leave the premises in the middle of a session when they're not complete and they're not in a good state. Those are pretty, asking somebody for more money when they're under the influence. If they're saying, oh my gosh, you are so amazing, you've done so much for me, I'm having this amazing experience, I'm connecting to all the oneness and all of this beauty, what can I give you? And the facilitator says, well, you can always offer me more money if you feel like this is worth more than what we agreed upon.
The tip
That's
jar.
a really
The tip jar is at the door or something. Yeah.
right. Yeah. Or if you want to support me, go ahead.
It's not worth repeating.
We get a little bit of lag sometimes between them, but yeah.
So those would be some examples, I would say.
Yeah, those are good examples. Some of them don't even think about, I just not straight offhand, because I guess most people, their first thought is, you're harming someone or something. But yeah, that can definitely do it too. You're, oh yeah, well, the tip bucket's on the door if you're having a great time, right? And it's there's an increased, facilitator responsibility, especially around psychedelic states, because they're so overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
So do you ever think parts of psychedelic culture still get romanticized, like or they still romanticize boundary crossing because it gets framed as like spiritually meaningful?
Yeah, I think so. I think there are times that, well, I think psychedelic experiences get romanticized generally.
Right.
Like there's, the headlines that one psilocybin experience will change your brain. And I'm like, cool. But in my experience, one experience, although occasionally, but for the most part, isn't really going to move the needle on somebody who's been dealing with, for example, OCD for most of their life. It's unlikely that one high dose mushroom session is going to totally change their life, although it can happen, and I'm not saying it can't, but that would be one way of it being romanticized. I would also say, I can't think of any ethical missteps that are romanticized, except for maybe being the spiritual guru and like offering people spiritual insights that they're not, that the client isn't coming up with, but rather the facilitator is using the kind of experience to start sharing their ideas of like spiritual enlightenment or of how one should live their life. I think that happens, and overly guiding people, being just way too directive and telling them kind of what they should be focusing on mentally, or, that I think that is still something that people are not totally condemning. And then another piece would be pushing people to the point of major discomfort so that they're very dysregulated. That was like the old paradigm that was shared a lot. And I know Stanislav Grof's work is a little bit about pushing things in that way. So I think there is now kind of not a backlash, but another, which I'm part of, which is like another idea that we don't actually need to push people to the point of discomfort and dysregulation for them to have healing with psychedelics. But I think that is still a very much alive concept in some of these communities that come from some of the old ways of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I can see that because you see like people talk about bad trips and how they're really the most teaching, and that's how it's been for me anyway. That a lot of times that I don't really learn anything from the really good trips so much, but because they're fun and I'm having fun and partying. But to be honest, most of those are not more than surface level trips. I'm not
Mhm.
going introverted or thinking about myself. So, how do you keep good facilitators? How do they protect against that accidental guru?
Well, being one,
Yeah, how do you think a good facilitator like protects themselves from becoming that guru that nobody really wants?
well, this is going to sound silly, but acknowledging that they have the potential to be that douchebag,
Right, and
and
maybe
that it's within them, and that they got to keep an eye on that it's not something outside of them, that only this would happen to this other person. I would never do that.
right,
It's like owning the fact that, oh no, I got that in me and I don't want to show up that way. I know I could and I choose not to, and here's how I can be aware of my own potential to do that. I think you're in the most danger when you think I could never do that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. We
right.
all have an inner douchebag. No one is
Inner
special.
Yeah.
guru
It is
douchebag.
there
Yeah,
in all of us.
right.
Yes.
Especially when you're driving in traffic in the morning.
That is, yeah, 100%.
Right.
That's where you see somebody's real side.
That's
There's a
Traffic.
right.
first date for you. Take
Mhm.
somebody into very dense traffic and see how they respond.
Right.
Oh wow, that'd be really dysregulating.
Yeah.
You're really
Yeah.
testing the boundaries.
That's right.
It's yeah. People talk about pushing the edges. It's usually not traffic.
No.
So kind of moving in a little bit more, we're going to go to like scalability and like the future of
Hmm.
all this. Do you think that psychedelic care realistically can scale ethically?
It's got to be more affordable.
Oh, that's
Like
100.
it's just really hard to access for someone. And in my opinion, there's a certain level of cadence of doing, you know, therapy and mushrooms that really supports an ongoing healing process. Like, who here has done mushrooms once? That's what I thought.
Yeah.
You know, like we're you don't do them just once.
Yeah.
Like you begin to do them over years, and maybe sometimes recreationally and sometimes with support and sometimes with friends and sometimes intentionally. And so I think it's unrealistic to think that people are going to be able to pay thousands of dollars over and over and over again. And some people can, and that's beautiful. And I'm all here for like abundance is beautiful, and it's not something I think that has to be a negative thing. And I do think that there is enough to go around. I'm definitely not in a scarcity mindset, and there's a lot of people that don't have access because of the way that our culture and economy and capitalism is set up, that a lot of people don't have access to the means to be able to do ongoing psychedelic work at the cost that it is. And it shouldn't be preventative in that way. So I would love to see the cost of like healing centers be less. I would love to see the cost of license. I paid almost $1,000 to get my license, just to just to like get, not to do training, not to do consultation, just to actually get to get the license.
Wow.
That's not the amount that we paid for healing centers. That's not the amount that we pay for. I mean, the medicine was really expensive at first. I found a cultivator that's much more affordable, but like, and that's because it's the beginning. And I think everyone's trying to get back the money that they invested. But my hope is that over time, the cost of the healing centers goes down, the cost of the license goes down, and it becomes a little bit more accessible in those ways. I also would love if we had some kind of alternative to insurance that was, providing some state supported coverage for psychedelic sessions in this model. And, I say not insurance because as a clinician, insurance is a pain. I mean, they tell us how many sessions we can do. We have to submit reports. We have to I mean, that's a second job. We have to essentially hire someone to manage the insurance coverage aspect. And sometimes you don't even get the money back from insurance companies. You're always kind of behind financially. So the insurance system I don't think that's the answer. I would love to see other ways for us to either make this more affordable on the end of the healing centers, and the facilitators. But the reality is, as a facilitator, this takes 8 hours of your entire day.
Yeah.
That's why it costs what it does.
Right.
It's the entire day that you have to be with this person, and you've got to get paid for that. And if you've been through years of training, you're a licensed therapist, you also have to make enough money to be able to take an entire day off of seeing your regular clientele. So I'm not saying I have an answer to how it can be more affordable, because I really don't. I just think that that is a huge barrier to accessibility, and for a lot of people. We do sliding scale, and when I was doing the underground work, I had a really, really big sliding scale. So I would go anywhere between $200 to $2,000 for a session. And I encourage anybody who's a member at my clinic to have a pro bono spot that they offer quarterly, if they can. So just like a completely free administration session quarterly, if they can, or at least have a really, really robust sliding scale that's based on something called the green bottle approach, rather than a just like income based. It's a little bit more a nuanced way of helping people determine where on the sliding scale they might go. So I think that currently that would be one of the better ways to do it. And again, that anxiety about facilitators not having to make their money back immediately, but seeing this as more of a long-term commitment into a career, that could probably help them try to offer that sliding scale. But it's I think it's a complicated situation at this moment, and I don't know if I actually have a solution.
Yeah, it is very complicated. Like a couple things it brings to mind. Like that's one thing that's why I love Colorado's model. They've got the individual, you got homegrown, you can grow your own mushrooms at home stuff.
Yes.
That makes it a lot more affordable. I mean, they're fairly simple to grow, I'll be honest, but it's
As
still
we learned from Shane Moss.
right, fairly simple to grow. But so I really applaud Colorado's model that way. But it is an interesting contrast what you bring up about insurance and the payments and everything, because we've had so many guests like Maps and Compass Pathways and Senator Kirsten Sinema. Their whole thing is FDA approval so we can get insurance. Like that's what they keep hitting on is, oh, we got to get FDA approval so we can get insurance. But then you hear it from the, clinician side, look, the insurance isn't the magic bullet that they're all saying it is. So I'm glad you brought it up. It's a really good, juxtaposition between the two areas, So
I mean, if they want to have actual mental health professionals running insurance companies who
right.
actually know what they're talking about, and aren't asking us to do CBT, which is the most like, yeah, it
Right.
works, but it's like antiquated. Nobody's just doing that. Like that's what insurance companies want to see. Are you doing some research backed type of therapy? And we're finding like that's not what makes people well emotionally. It's relational.
Mm-hmm.
It's not CBT. It's not some, prescription. It's an ongoing relationship with a person that helps us heal transferentially
Right.
from early attachment wounding. Like that's what helps people heal emotionally. And you can't quantify that with insurance.
Right. And it makes sense. So I appreciate you bringing it up. It really gives a new point of view to all that. So what do you think gives you the most hope over the next 5 years?
Well, I really agree. I really love that we have the personal use model here, and that people have the right to explore their own consciousness. I do have some people at my healing center who provide really low cost sessions, and who, when they've been working with a client for a while, they're able to provide them with pretty accessible care. And I'm not going to say specific names because I don't want their, inboxes to be flooded.
Right.
But, I do have some people in my practice who are actually providing some pretty accessible care and some work. That gives me a lot of hope. It gives me a lot of hope that I actually don't disagree. I think that with an FDA approval for some of these things, there will be more access. I think that there are more ways than one to make this accessible. And may we have as many pathways to people accessing the opportunity to explore their consciousness as possible, whether that be through FDA approval, state approval, personal use, decriminalization. Let's let it all go, and let's see where people fit in to those categories, because there will be a track or a path that fits one person that doesn't fit another, and making multiple access points for different people at different points in their journey and in our culture, I think is going to allow for more of a psychedelic liberation of consciousness.
Yeah. I mean, that's the hope, right? So that everybody can have the healing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So psychedelic therapy becomes mainstream. What do you most hope survives from the early culture around it?
I mean, honoring like the relationality, the spirits of, especially if we're talking about plants and the natural medicines. I really hope that we don't do what we've done with our relationship with the earth now, which is treated as like, it's like, the book The Giving Tree. It's just like, let me just take and take and take and take. I really hope that the spirit of the underground that has brought a lot of the ritual shamanic pieces, that's not forgotten, that reciprocity, that the living consciousness of the earth is what is actually growing from this movement. I hope, I know many people who've done mushrooms, most people I've ever sat with, have a moment of sitting with a tree and looking outside and seeing things breathe and being like, oh, it's all really alive. It's sentient. And I hope that continues to be messages that people receive, so that we can be in better relationship with the land and stop destroying our earth. That is our life force. And that's what my greatest hope would be, and that comes from this, and that's what's actually coming to fruition.
Yeah, and it sounds beautiful. It's exactly that's what we should all be hoping for. All right, everybody, that's where we're going to wrap the public portion of the conversation. Huge thanks again to Dori Lewis for coming on the show and willing to engage with some of the harder questions about training, ethics, and what psychedelic care actually looks like once it leaves theory and enters reality. For everyone joining us on Patreon, we're heading into the integration session now. We're going to get a little deeper into some of the tensions underneath modern psychedelic therapy, including commercialization, spiritual authority, and underground versus clinical models. We're going to talk about how facilitators themselves psychologically process a lot of this work, long term. You can find that section at patreon.com/divergent states. And as always, if you're interested in harm reduction education and psychedelic peer support training, check out the SIP program through the Zendo Project. Their work around psychedelic safety at festivals and events has been hugely influential in shaping modern harm reduction culture. So you guys check them out. Use our code DivergentS10. You'll get 10% off and help us out a little bit. You guys get a little bit of a break too. So we'll leave it there. And so that was our conversation with Dori Lewis of Elemental Psychedelics. Honestly, I think conversations like this are important because psychedelics, as we mentioned, they're moving out of abstraction and into infrastructure. And once that happens, ethics, competency, training, financial pressure, insurance, and all the human behavior and stuff suddenly matter a whole lot more than the branding or headlines. Bryan, what was the thing that stood out to you the most out of this conversation?
I think the thing that stood out to me the most in this conversation specifically was just I really appreciated how Dory, and it seems as Elemental as well, have a good balance between having that strong passion to do the thing, but also enough sense to be grounded about it, to make sure to go about it the right way and to facilitate things in a practical business sense. I like that. It
Right.
seems like it's neat, taken care of, and that's the kind of I've got a lot of respect for that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like she's got she really does a good job of the pragmatic
Right.
things, the practical things on the ground. We heard some really surprising answers too. Like I said, we've heard from all these different organizations and companies. They're like, oh, we need FDA approval. And then,
Mm-hmm.
to hear, well, that may not be the magic bullet, is just FDA approval, which I kind of agree with. That's kind of been kind of the back, the elephant in the room the whole time we've talked about that. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the biggest takeaways for me is that psychedelic work seems to demand a kind of restraint that modern culture doesn't really reward. It's not a certainty or authority or performance. It's patience and humility, and the ability to impose yourself onto someone else's, and the ability to not impose yourself
Yeah.
onto someone else's experience. That may be the most defining tension of the movement heading forward.
Well, I imagine that's probably really difficult too.
Right?
Even.
How do you not impose yourself onto someone else's trip?
Mm-hmm.
So, if you guys have enjoyed this show, please leave a rating or review. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, subscribe. It genuinely helps more than to help people find the show. If you want access to the full integration session and video versions of the episodes, head over to patreon.com/divergent states. You can also join our community Discord through the links on the subreddit, so our Psychonaut. Once again, you're interested in psychedelic peer support training, be sure to check out SIT training through the Zendo project. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep exploring divergent states of consciousness. Psychedelics can take you deep, but you don't have to go at it alone. Fireside Project is your trusted companion on the psychedelic path. If you're having a tough trip, their free, anonymous support line is just a call or text away at 62-FIRESIDE. Planning a journey? Fireside certified coaches offer personalized video sessions to help you prepare and integrate, starting with a free 20-minute consult. Whether you're on the path, in the middle of it, or just getting started, Fireside is here for you. Learn more at firesideproject.org.